Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. My name is Staraptor. I'm so thrilled you could stop by for this week's comic book reviews for Star Wars. We have a big one here, the milestone issue of Vader. This is issue number 50, which also culminates that entire period of a year between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, which the current four comics were in for the last 4 years. So we have that, but we also have the High Republic Adventures, issue number 10, that is cemented 20 years before the Phantom Menace. So we have both ends of the spectrum here. We're going to get into that, but first make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That is a way you can keep up to speed with all the content I produce here. But let's get started. So we have the High Republic Adventures, issue number 10 for Phase 3, of course, as always, written by DJO, which is Daniel Jose Older, and Tony Bruno. So this one doesn't center around the Jedi, doesn't center around even Zine Morale. This one centers around a newer character, Sevran Tarkin. Tarkins are on the planet Eriadu, yes, ancestors of Grand Moff Tarkin. And this is all about this power struggle, this political struggle, right? We have the Nihil, which recently have overtaken Eriadu into its web of the occlusion zone, with Storm Shield now passing over by, and that leaves them vulnerable to the Nihil. Nihil have come down to try to take over, and that's where they're bartering this decision with Sevran's uncle Trakul, who is one of the council people of the Tarkins, and they are vying for control with the Nihil, which is not a good thing. So Sevran decides, okay, enough is enough. I have to get in charge of my family, and that means I'm going to do something with the Virmak, who are part of the Carrion Spike, which is a region in Eriadu, and that is kind of these people's rite of passage to basically kill the Virmak. And, well, she decides not to actually kill the Virmak, but actually tame the Virmak, which has never been done before. And in doing so, she's able to trundle on into the throne room where all this political stuff is happening with Trakul. And he immediately says, oh, I'm a fraud. I never killed one. And, yeah, you should just take leadership. And that's how she gets the leadership of the Tarkin family. And immediately double-crosses Zine Morale and Lula Tolosola and says, hey, yeah, I'm going to do my own thing. And then next thing you know, it's her brother, and her grandmother ending on that last page. But, you know, this issue is interesting how we get a little more political background. I think that's great. In a series such as the High Republic, having so much ancillary material, they are able to give the real estate to go into the political intrigue and the nuances of all the things that happen between these families, and what happens when things get shuffled around a little bit when a big force like the Nihil comes in. So I really did enjoy this issue, and just the fun Easter eggs to the James Luceno Tarkin novel coming back 20 years prior, but we're still dealing with the same family. So it's really cool to see that. But the big thing here, as I mentioned off the top, is the grand finale itself, Darth Vader issue number 50. This is written by Greg Pak, and it's got a bunch of artists, because the cool thing about this one is there are 4 chapters. Chapter 1, Destroyer. The artist on this is Raphael Anko. Then Chapter 2, In Service of the Empire. The artwork is done by Paul Fry. Then in Chapter 3, this one is called, there is another, Luke Ross's art for that. And last but not least, Phantoms, Chapter 4, Adam Gorham does the artwork for that. So we're going to go through chapters here as I do my little breakdown and little nitpicks, or not nitpicks, but like little cool things I liked in these little short stories here. But they all connect. What's cool, these aren't not just like ancillary things. These all continue the story that we've been experiencing over the last several arcs. And the first one is that Vader in Destroyer, the story, has the power of the entire storm system thing that Tantaza, the storm machine that Tantaza has. And he's able to channel that, use this energy from these vials that collect the energy of this planet to basically supercharge himself with the Force to the point where he is decimating literally legions of stormtroopers and even Suma Verminoth and Sith cultists and everything else in between. He gets to get that overwhelming power. He develops that hatred to just wipe everything out. As he is doing that, he's having flashbacks to Attack of the Clones with him slaughtering the Tusken Raiders. So much hatred there. And we get this really cool moment where Palpatine, I believe, if I'm interpreting this correctly, it's Palpatine is able to basically appear to Vader through the Force, talk through him with the Force, it gets Vader very, very angry to the point where he's like destroying Palpatine, to the point where Palpatine wasn't actually there. But then he is there, and he's able to get into Vader's mind and says, no matter how much power you accumulate, you will never be able to be ready to take me down. And that is it. Vader is just broken down, his eyepiece is shattered, and he becomes submissive to the Emperor once again. So it's very interesting. But the cool thing about this is we have this great dialogue in the beginning of this issue with Vader with Sabe, and they meet and say, and Vader even says like, "Hey, I said the next time I would see you, you would be dead by my hand," essentially. But he lets her walk away. She is not, willing to kill her. We have a moment between Luke and Sabe cannot admit to Luke like what the connection is between him and Vader or whatever. But she says to Luke, just be good. And that resonates with him. He goes out there, he fights for good, he saves his father. Really good stuff there. So this whole little short story was great. It was nice to see all this come to a head. Then in chapter 2, In Service of the Emperor, this one is where we get to find out that the Emperor, of course, was pulling the strings the whole time with this whole Imperial schism Imperial. Sly Moore was really reporting to the Emperor, getting the ball rolling for the Emperor. Same thing with even Pride. Pride was basically worker for the Emperor. And we see that in Rise of Skywalker, I'll serve you in an old and a new regime, like that he was serving the Emperor now. It's all these little pieces, Tantaza, all these little pieces that they thought they were working for something. It was just Emperor in the background pulling the pieces to make Vader as powerful as he can be, just to knock him down a peg and be like, look, I am your master. You will never be as powerful as me. But even Ochi of Bestoon gets involved, which is really nice because Ochi thinks that, hey, he's got the one-up on everybody. He is got the upper hand, and he finds out that everybody was being played, and then he gets sent to go to Vader, gets some juvenile Suma Verminoff in the mix. Vader is getting hurt pretty bad, but then he comes back because of his hatred. He's able to use the lightsaber. He cripples Ochi of Bestoon to the point where we see him crippled like he is sort of in The Rise of Skywalker. And that is when Sly Moore is like, yes, it's complete. Your hatred is back, right? Then in chapter 3, that is the big one for me. That is there is another story. And that is when Leia meets with Sabe. Sabe once is worried that Leia will succumb to Vader. She gets a vision of herself at the Battle of Endor, basically wounding Leia. She feels like that can't be happening. She's trying to convince Leia, like, look, you have the ability right now to become an empress, like, with Vader. She doesn't outright tell Leia. She can't know that Vader's her father yet, of course, because we find out several moments later in Return of the Jedi, or however long that is from the story. But it is interesting that really Sabe is poking Leia to the point of really finding out where her head is, really getting to know, will she succumb to the dark side? Will she succumb to Vader and the Empire like Sabe was? And it comes out to the point where, no, Leia has her ideals. She has her idea for what freedom is, not the Empire rule, not ruling over others the way that Vader and Palpatine are. And she even mentions Alderaan at one point, but it's really cool because she's strong in her resolve. And basically, Sabe stuns her and says, like, you're perfect. Like, this is perfect. Like, how you're reacting is exactly what I would expect. And you're going to be perfectly capable and independent on your own against Vader. So that was a really nice moment. And then chapter 4, Phantoms, is really cool because this one is really just harkening back to where it all began. We have Kitster, we have Wald, the Rodian. They escaped this planet that Vader was fighting on with these crystals. They sell them to this black market on Tatooine. They get all this money and they free these slaves, which is great because it goes into Queen Shadow, the Sabe Padme book. And they're freeing the slaves, and they reunite with their friends from episode 1 to Phantom Menace when Anakin is there fixing a pod racer and Jar Jar gets his tongue stuck in like the electricity part. Like all those characters there when they were young, they're all older now, obviously, and they're all reminiscing about Anakin. Like, oh, I wonder whatever happened to him. I heard he became a Jedi. So it's this like really cool like idea of talking about Anakin in the past, and then Ochi's reporting back to Vader at Vader's castle, Mustafar, because he was able to get those crystals from the kids, didn't kill him. And he's like, do you want me to go back there and kill the kids? And they're talking about somebody named Anakin Skywalker. And this last page of the entire run is Vader is literally saying, like, no, basically, Anakin Skywalker is dead, you know. And that is him sitting on his throne on Mustafar, just coming to the idea, coming to grips to the fact that Luke or Anakin is dead, but his head is down. Like, he's kind of like disappointed in himself in a way or something like that. So it's very interesting, but this does so well for Vader by really highlighting his kids, his children, as a focal point in the story. Yes, does it feel almost out of place for Leia to be in her book because she's never been in there before? Kind of, yeah, but when you look through it with the lens of Vader and how his redemption ends up becoming the way it is, and the ramifications and all that, it is a really beautiful way to end this series. And you know, this is probably going to be our last Darth Vader ongoing series, because we've really hit all the major points of between the trilogies, between Empire and A New Hope, and now between Empire and Return of the Jedi. There's no more space. We're going to get a lot more, you know, stories of Vader. There'll probably be miniseries from here until the end of time because Vader sells. But to get that 40+ issue run of a specific time in Vader's life is Greg Pak and team. They absolutely nailed it. Really, really love this one. I think we're still going to get miniseries on other things. Hopefully one day we'll get a miniseries on, you know, Luke constructing his lightsaber, or, you know, the Battle of Tanab with Lando Calrissian, and all these different things that these characters are mentioned in with different books and the movies themselves. So all in all, bravo to everybody involved. From 2020 to 2024, we got, you know, a couple different events. We got the War of the Bounty Hunters, Crimson Reign, Hidden Empire. We got the Dark Droid saga. We got so much. We got, of course, we had Bounty Hunters, Star Wars, Darth Vader, Dr. Aphra series, all in the mix there. Great job all around. What were your thoughts on all these comics we talked about today? Darth Vader, High Republic Adventures, just Star Wars comics from 2020 to 2024. Let's talk about it. Let's celebrate it in the comment section down below. For more on Star Wars, I talk about these comics on a weekly basis on another channel as well, with the Star Wars Underworld. I'm on there talking with Matthew Neugebauer over on the Tractor Beam Show every Wednesday at 9 p.m. We go live to dive deep into the very comics that release that day. So if you want on the ground, boots on the ground sort of thing, the day of, after you read the comics, you can get some commentary from us over there. But that's going to do it for me, Star. But thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me, and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at StarRaptor.